So I think we've got about 8 people on the call so far. Might have a few more people come in as we go. Basically, this session is about how do you start recording when you don't have any gear, you haven't really done any recording before. How do you get started? How can you start making music and recording things of actually a reasonable quality? And then when you start to get gear, what gear should you get first? And kind of building up to what a kind of good home setup looks like once you're prepared to kind of put a little bit of money into creating something. So Johnny and I are going to talk through kind of that getting started kind of phase, because we've just kind of gone through that with Castle Hill and working with a whole stack of different musicians, getting them recording stuff at home. And then James is going to take us through his setup. And we want this to be really interactive. So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. It'll be good to get a indication from the people on the call if you've tried to record anything before, and also a case indication of, is there something that you're interested in kind of getting into? Would you like to be able to record some songs at home? So if people want to pipe in and just kind of say where their interest lies.
Hey Sam, just in terms of order of things, just because my kids might crack it here, they're at the hour of cracking. I might actually do some of my stuff first, then flip it back over to you guys, and then if I'm still around, I'll finish off later. But there's probably some key things that I'd like to get out there in terms of story, maybe that we'll start off with after we hear from everybody.
Yeah, right. Let's do that.
Yeah. So the first thing we got to do is obviously hear, you guys have all joined this, but we don't help us help you. So yeah, that's what we're saying. So let's hear from you guys what you guys want us to talk through, so we can tailor our message here.
Who wants to go first?
Am I required to participate?
Yes, you are.
All right, I'll go first then. So I suppose my interests in audio and recording and that kind of stuff have historically been mostly from a live perspective. But with the advent of everyone is now at home all day, every day, we decided that we would try to put together some songs for the Castle Hill Ecclesia. And it turned out that I seemed to be the person who had the most experience with working with audio. So I turned into the producery sort of person. Anything further of note, Sam?
What would you like to, do you have anything you would like to kind of find out about from this session?
Let's see. Any sorts of information about what's good quality but not unnecessarily expensive gear is nice to know. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head right now.
All right, that's cool. Maybe Phoebe, you'd like to?
Yeah. Mine's more of a casual interest, but it's also similar with all the stuff that's going online at the moment, and also just starting doing AV work at Shafts. Just interested to know what it's all about. I'm definitely, and just in case I need to record things in the future, it's always good to have a bit of a foundation. and I'm definitely more for the budget end of things. Yeah. Cheap stuff, but good quality, preferably. Yeah.
Cool.
All
All right.
I'm not really sure what I want out of this, to be honest, but I do have an interest in music and I play the piano. I guess it just doesn't hurt to be aware of what goes on behind some things, I suppose.
And Joe, you recently got a piano from someone, right?
Yes, a keyboard. So
Yeah. I'd like to. Yeah, I want to talk about that in a little bit.
Yep. All right. Cool.
Yeah, what you could do with that.
Yeah, that'd be good actually.
Awesome. Paul, do you want to say anything? Or?
I'm a poor uni student, so I have a phone and it can record sound pretty much.
All right.
I'd say I'd like to also register my interest in what you've got to say about keyboards and digital pianos, that kind of stuff, James. That would be interesting.
Yeah, no problems.
All right. Well, let's throw to James.
And just Liz, I don't want Alyssa Manser to get off the hook lightly. Liz, you've joined. You have music in thy family.
Yeah.
What is it that you're interested in getting out of this?
Also, like, obviously, with everything going on at the moment, like, with a couple of potential online camps coming up, like, for the meeting and a few other bits and pieces, like, what would be the best way to go recording, like, straight off the piano onto, like, an iPad? What tips would you guys have for doing that?
Cool. You're definitely all in the right place.
That's right. All right. Well, as Sam said, I might just kick it off here, and probably one of the main reasons I wanted to kick this off is to say that I was once a poor uni student, like you, and I had a lot of opportunity in the States. I had a lot of opportunity with live music at camps and campfires and in collegial setting, and at one point, I was probably about 15 or 16. I started to kind of write. So I'm a little bit, there's like two categories. There's people that do production and recording and work on the techie side of things. And then there's other people that are songwriter creatives. And I just happen to be one of those combined two. And one of the hardest things in the world is producing yourself. That is the hardest thing in the world is producing yourself, because you got to know the tech, press all the buttons, know the song, do the take. And there's been hours and hours of frustration, but that hours and hours of frustration has born a practice and an ear now over 20 something years that I've learned all of this organically. And some of you guys have seen the music that the Seventh Day has produced over the last 20 years. And people go like, you recorded that in your living room? And we've never rented out a fancy studio. We've never done most of the stuff that we've recorded very organically, and thankfully we've gotten to know amazing people that are really professional at this kind of stuff, like Luke Jervicius and Joseph Cheek, who was on during Easter weekend. And that's the gamut that we have in our community. We've got people with phones and iPads and people that run full recording studios. So all of those things have their place and have all contributed over the years. And I think something that I said last time that I'd like to just re-emphasize is that the beauty of our community, being the small community that it is, the beauty is that you don't have to be perfect. People are more interested in authenticity from the people that they know than they are some super produced thing. What makes our music special is that it comes from the inside and it comes from the people that we know. So you're usually your worst critic, and that's why it's so hard to produce yourself, because you end up forgetting about the heart and trying to be perfect for others because you're very aware of how you're perceived by others, when in reality what moves people most is just an authentic expression of love, and that's more on a performance and writing side. But even on the production side, a lot of people can get hung up on that one little piece of noise and that one little piece of crack and never release a song. And in reality, our community needed that song, and you held on to it because you were being OCD. So it's very difficult to find the right balance. And I guess the background that I've got is that I've been where you guys sort of all are. The way that I started, which is probably where a lot of you guys are, the way that I started was with a computer, a free piece of software. Some of you guys might remember Cakewalk from Blackback back in the day, and a small interface that I got my parents to fund. So the first thing that you need to do is ask your parents for money. That's the first thing that you need to do. Tell them you want to make music for God and not yourself, and support the community. And wouldn't that be great if they could help you out? I only needed a couple $100 for an interface. That's kind of really fundamental. Some sort of an interface to be able to do something a little bit more creative. But that was before the age of iPhones and iPads. So the benefit that you've got is that this device that I'm holding right here has a microphone that's good enough, sounds good enough, has a compressor, a limiter built in, and software like GarageBand that Apple will give you for free means that you can produce a really, really good song and recording and do some stuff without actually spending the money that I had to ask my parents for. So you guys have a definite benefit now in 2020, or where it is that we're in now, 2020. And so what I want to do is I want to take you through a couple of different setups that I've got. Now, the setup, this is why I wanted to do this first, Sam. One second, Audrey. The reason why I wanted to do this first was because I want to show you the setup that I've got when I was 15 or whatever it was, and that I still use today. So this set of headphones here, you could probably see how I'm just holding this, so hopefully you guys can see, but you can see sort of how beaten up these headphones are. And I mean, here, how many years have been inside that little section there? It's sort of like falling apart. This set of headphones has gotten me through 15 or 20 years of working. So I would highly recommend a good set of headphones. But what I've got in my ears here, I've got these AirPods. AirPods and Apple headphones that come with your phone are probably almost as good as most headphones that you can buy that are low cost. But if you can get yourself a set of good headphones, it means that instead of having to spend money on speakers and monitors, if you just have a good set of headphones, it means that you'll be able to hear the sound properly, and you'll use those both during recording and during sort of mixing and putting things together. The other thing that's really good about that is that you can do things at night. You could do things. My best ideas come between 10 and 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if anybody else is like that, but I highly recommend for everybody to have some good set of headphones, and it gives you a lot of versatility. The other thing is this keyboard. So I've actually got, and this is not the Seventh Day Studio that some of you guys have seen. This is just my little home setup here. I've just got a really small keyboard here. It's weighted keys, but this keyboard, this is only 76 keys. It's missing an octave on I don't think the whole thing. And it's got a little USB port in the back here, somewhere over there, little USB port. And that little USB port, I'll just see if I can flip my camera here. I'm pretty sure I know how to do this. So that little USB port back there, I drilled a hole in my desk, and it runs all the way back through the other side of my desk and up and right there into my computer. And that is good enough to give me something where I can actually play into my computer, and then it actually tracks what you played. So let me just I'm doing I've got two setups here. So what I just played before I got on here, you could see there. So there is what I played out of that keyboard tracked here. And then this little mixer is actually a replica of that. So this is just a physical version of that. But you can see when I do that, that moves. This is just a physical version of that. Helps for touching, and those are all sort of the tracks. So this little setup here, that's the keyboard part. And then I just have a little stereo microphone, which is that guy right there. So that's called an XY. So that's a perfect stereo pair at 45 degrees. And it's got a little switch on the top. And again, similarly, that just runs through my desk into the back of here and creates a stereo track there. So with basically the putting the keys in, this microphone, that set of headphones, and that basically that's good enough for recording what most Christadelphia music consists of, which is things like guitar and keys, or keys and a flute, or guitar and a voice. And that has done super well for me for 20 years. Now, obviously, I've got that whole setup, but if you want to go even that, obviously here I'm running a double screen in Pro Tools, but on this screen, this is my Windows one. So this is actually free software, Cakewalk. You can just download that for free. So that's uni student friendly. And all of this is free. And with your computer, software like this and a simple interface, this is a great example. I wanted to pull this up because it's something you can contribute to now. You guys may remember not too long ago, the WCF put out a call to create for Here at Last. Did any of you guys see that? On phone, you can't actually see everybody. Let me flip through.
Yeah.
I can see more people. So what I'm showing you here, that is what we did to contribute to that initiative Here at Last. So there is my guitar, there is the piano track that they gave us, and there is Charlotte's flute. So we recorded our contributions to that with that microphone into this free software, and was able to contribute. And if you notice, when I zoom in here, these are not one take wonders here. You sort of wonder, hey, these guys, how do they do that? Well, it wasn't one take wonder. So if you look here, that's the third recording of the first part of the flute. That's the sixth one. And if I continue to move over here, there's the eighth one there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the main benefit of getting these things into your computers is that you don't have to be a one take wonder like you need to when you're in a live scenario, tracking something that's going to be a one take wonder. That is actually quite hard to do. So if you're at your house and you want to have a few goes at something and you want to track over something somebody else sent you, free software, load it in, track against it. And then what we've done is we've applied now things. This is an example. What we've done is let's just take this flute part as an example. So because I had a fairly crummy situation, I mean, my children sleep up there, right? And this is not a soundproof room at all. There's innately some noise, especially coming from that guy right there, which is the heat, which we need in Melbourne, unfortunately. It's freezing here. Anyway, so what I've done is I've applied there, you look very close, I've applied a noise reduction filter, an equalizer, and then a compressor. So what the noise filter does is it gets rid of some of the noise, and I'll just play with these guys here and find where that noise frequency is and get rid of it. And then this guy here, because it's a flute and it's very piercing, you can see that I've actually just taken off some of that really high end. And then you can see the compressor that I've put so that it doesn't when the flute goes really, really high, it doesn't just crush this here. So I guess what all I've done there is taken a bunch of takes, applied a bunch of free filters, and then literally went up here and went to File, Export Audio, and uploaded it to the WCF. So I guess none of that is necessarily all the things that you need to produce a song, but I guess that's a great example of things that our community is doing. You guys are seeing online, and you might go, hey, how can I contribute to that? Grab some software, and if it's not perfect and you're using the microphone on your phone, that's okay. put it through some filters and put it through some compression and some equalizer. And, that's not the purpose of this today, but there's sessions that Joseph Cheek is doing. There's lots of tutorials online that can help you just try to get that sound. But that all was done just by listening to those headphones there. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that this simple setup that I've got here the software didn't cost any money. The effects didn't cost any money, and the headphones I've had for a long, long time, and I just used a single microphone. And the guy Sam is going to talk to you about, and Jonathan, you're going to talk about what you can do just with your phone by itself. But I guess I'm taking you to that next level, that if you did convince your parents to invest in helping you with one or two things, there's quite a lot that you could do. And I guess I'm showing you two setups. This is like a medium-sized setup. So when we record, this is another little thing. This was, I think, about $80. I think you could probably do them now. I think you could probably do these with your phone app now. But what I do is I sit over here. So there's my little seat. So I'll sit just like this. And I've got this little Bluetooth guy here. I'll put my headphones on. And what you do with the software is I set up the software to something we call loop record. So on here, I'll click on the track that I want, and I'll click. I showed you before that there was 8 takes of the flute. So all I did was I just put on loop record, and if you're by yourself, I sit down, I click the little record button here, and I can stop it and start it from here like it's a little remote controller. And I point this XY mic position towards where I'm sitting playing guitar, or where Charlotte was playing the flute, adjust it to the right height, and just take a few. And instead of stopping and starting and stopping and starting, which is never a good way to do recording, you do the whole thing one time, and then maybe do the whole thing a second time or a third time. So you get the natural feel of it, and you're not punching things in and making it feel really unnatural. And so with a couple of those takes, then we go back and we look at the best, 2 or 3 takes of the verses, and then compile them together into a take. And then, of course, when you're adding another piece, that's the reason for the headphones. You can't obviously have that noise out here. It needs to be in here only, so that this microphone is only picking up your new sound that you're recording. So again, on my little thing here, I just go to the next track, hit record, and then I start the new part over again. So that's the tracking piece, and then you start mixing them all together, comping them all together, and then once you have them all in a nice balanced form, you can export your single track or your individual tracks, or your whole song, so to speak. This kind of methodology here, this is actually what we do at our ecclesia as well. So I know, Joe, you're from our ecclesia. When you see me and Franz and Matt Waite running around and moving knobs and all this stuff, it's really no different to what we do with our ecclesia, except in the ecclesia. So Phoebe, for you at Shafts, for you at your ecclesia, you probably have a situation like this where you might have like piano instruments. Phil Pooley probably has his own track, so it's the Phil Pooley track, and then anything else on here, and then you're muting them, you're cutting them out, you're starting them, you're stopping them, because fundamentally this whole thing tracks out to a live output, which you can then feed into a recording or to the main front of your ecclesia or to YouTube or something like that. So these the fundamentals of this are allow you to move between things that you're doing at home, things you're doing in your meeting, and things that people are doing for their live stream setup. So yeah, so that was all. I kind of just wanted to show you what I've got here, and I use that when I'm home and trying to work on WCF or do something for you guys, or just record an idea. And then usually that's good enough for a demo. And then when it's come time to actually track something as a group, we go into the Seventh Day Studio that we've got set up that has a lot more better setup than this. But that's what I use at home. And the home setup here worked for the first 3 Songs of Deliverance albums. it wasn't until the last few albums that we've done that we've really got to that next level, and that was good enough to make a difference in our community with the young people. So hopefully, yeah, that's what I've got here. Does anybody have any questions or want to see anything?
I have a question about your keyboard connection. So if you're running MIDI into your computer, is that right?
Well, traditionally, it's funny. Traditionally, in our studio, in the Seventh Day Studio, we've got a big Korg Triton 88 key that has MIDI in and out. But what I was saying before, most new keyboards, and Joe, I reckon the one that you've got actually has this. It actually has a USB, and the driver in the software. So the driver in both this Cakewalk software, and I think Pro Tools, I'll have to check if Pro Tools supports it, but it makes a virtual MIDI port. So it is MIDI, definitely. But I guess the difference is previously people used to have to buy an audio interface that literally had two MIDI cable inputs, and now that can all be done over USB instead of needing one. Now we do use that because of the send and return out of Pro Tools. So in the studio we do use that, but we don't at home. It's enough input just to get that. It's just enough to get that on a click track, on a time track, and then once it gets in, you can quantize it and line them all up sort of together, and it takes in the stuff from the pedal as well. So just USB, Jonathan.
Yeah. So my follow-up question to that then is, what are you using to turn that MIDI signal back into actual sounds? Is it like a free piano kind of thing, or
so when I do it in Pro Tools, so in Pro Tools I actually have some a sample set up, but Pro Tools, even the Pro Tools Lite, I think comes with the basic. I haven't used it for a while, but I think even the Pro Tools Lite comes with an insert, a virtual instrument insert. I think it's called Mini Grand. Yeah, so you can get Mini Grand. So it's this one over here. I'll just flip my camera around. So that sound there, I patch through. You can use this Mini Grand, which comes with Pro Tools. You can actually patch it through, and you can make a few changes to the sound and to the location. So it's pretty good. It's enough to sound okay, and so that becomes an insert into that track.
Righto.
That's how it converts it.
Yeah, I'm using Reaper, and I don't think that comes with a super great virtual piano by itself. Yep. So I found another free one that seems to be quite nice, at least for what I'm using it for.
The one I'm just checking, the one that's in Cakewalk that you can use, it's actually pretty good. It's a SI electric piano. This one here, that's the one that comes with Cakewalk. So it definitely has a plugin. So again, that's free. I'm pretty sure that GarageBand. Do you know, Sam? GarageBand has a free one, doesn't it?
I think so. I haven't used GarageBand for a while, but
they might not be great. But what I'll do, Jonathan, sometimes to get the live feel is I'll actually, because this keyboard is actually a Yamaha, it has a really nice sample set. So what I'll do is I'll plug in the back here. It actually has a left and right audio, and instead of the left and right from this microphone, I'll actually change it on the interface here. I'll change it to 2 lines. And then I'll literally play. So instead of being a MIDI track, it'll actually play as an audio track there.
Yeah, okay.
I'll play it a lot lighter. It's just the MIDI sometimes is nice if you want to change your sound sort of later. You want to experiment with things. I don't know. I mean, you've got a little better setup, Sam, and I could see in your video there. But that's at least how I use it. The other thing is some of the early ones. Some of these keyboards have some really good pad sounds. And if you can't figure out how to do it here with all these patches, you can just audio put them in and mix them into and that's always done really well.
Yeah, I just checked, and the piano that I'm using is SoundMagic Neo Piano. For anyone who's looking for things and wants another option.
Yep. Anybody else have any questions? Joe, I might come over to your house and help you.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah, because I'd like to have. I'd
Stage,
actually like to have a look at that piano that you've got there and just look at the output. I might give you a hand at your house.
All right, sounds good.
I have a question. Do you find a big difference between recording stereo for things like guitar and recording just a mono with like a single microphone?
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. That's why I've just gone with this stereo pair. And you can even get ones. You can go and they can get ones like this. Now, if you look at my fingers here, imagine you have an iPhone hooked here.
Mm.
So you get ones that are like this, and it can literally on the other side of this can plug into the bottom of your phone. So that can become an interface directly into your phone, and use your phone and use iOS apps and stuff. So you can definitely, if you don't, and I guess that's probably a good transition over to you, Sam, is to say, hey, what if you don't have a computer and all of this stuff? And what if your parents don't agree to fund you, which they should? What do you do then?
Yeah. All right. So, we kind of like I've been around music for a long time, but my first experience with kind of recording came in 2018, getting ready for Connect 19 Youth Conference. And we kind of decided to take on the kind of bold task of recording an album for the conference, which in hindsight was probably a bigger project than we realized. Unfortunately, we had help from the mighty Dan Blackwood, who ran all the tech for us. But we recorded 4 songs in one day. We took over Cabramatta Hall and set up and recorded scratch tracks and went through this whole process in a day and recorded 4 songs. I think we did go back and do a follow up a week later with the kind of a few tracks, but basically did it all in a day, which was a little bit mad. That was my kind of first experience of proper recording. But like the what we recorded there from not a proper music studio, just in a random hall that had not terrible acoustics, with very little rehearsal, but some reasonably good quality gear. We produced some really good songs, and they're on Spotify if anyone wants to check those out. But then when this happened, we're like, oh, okay. How are we gonna when the COVID happened? We're like, how are we gonna do music for our meeting? We have all of these. Castle Hill is really lucky to have a whole stack of up and coming musicians, and our young people. So like, how can we make use of these people? And so we started figuring out how to do this. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And I was fortunate to have a resource. My older brother Josh is a conductor, and so he was at the start of lockdown figuring out how he was going to run his like bands and ensembles, and keep them running through lockdown. Because if he couldn't, then he wasn't going to get paid. So he put a lot of work into figuring out how to make this all work. And so I'm hugely thankful to him. And I'll be linking to some of his resources on some of the apps that I'm going to talk about. So first I'm going to get Johnny to play a clip. This is an audio clip. This is one of the songs that we recorded with Castle Hill. So this is literally, I think every track on this was recorded through someone's phone. And like obviously there's a lot of challenges with doing that, but just have a listen to see, like with very little effort, very little knowledge, and very little kind of skill, what can be accomplished with the caveat of Johnny working some magic to pull it all together.
All right. So can we see a VLC file thing now? Cool.
Yeah.
Let me know if the sound does need something done to it by waving. Sam, I think your mic might have turned off.
Yes, it has. That's better. I think we've done about 4 or 5 songs now. We're in the middle of recording Choose Your Eternity, just kind of pulling in a couple of final tracks to record that, which is going to be fun. But pretty much all of the tracks for that, with the exception of, I think all of the tracks in the final mix would have been recorded on people's phones. So, and there's a kind of a couple of key things to get right when you're recording on your phone, mostly because while your phone has got a good microphone in it, your phone it wants to use that microphone to record voice, record you talking. So it's kind of all set up to cut out background noise and kind of compress it down so that it can get a pretty clear voice signal that can be understood and doesn't take up too much data and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different recorder apps out there, but the key is finding ones that allow you to that actually kind of bypass a lot of those settings and allow you to use the microphone kind of more directly and give you a bit more control over it. So I'm going to talk about 2 apps, one for Android and one for iOS. I have an Android phone, so I have a lot more experience with the Android one. But arguably the iOS one is actually a better app from what I have seen. So for Android, there's an app called Smart Recorder. What I'm going to do is just jump into the link on my phone, the Zoom meeting on my phone, and then I can show you what that app looks like.
Can you show that? Right? Can you share your screen in?
Yeah,
Zoom?
so I'm just
joining. Oh, that's awesome.
Joining the call on my phone, and then I'm going to share my screen.
Just while Sam's doing that, one of the things that I love about what people have been doing is just reimagining hymns, and like that last song, like how good was that? Like most glorious things are spoken, but like in just a fresh way. That's probably like a really great contribution that we need, or else our hymn book's going to die. So it's great to be doing songs like that. Cool. Yeah, we could see that, Sam. That was good.
Cool. Hopefully it'll catch up in a second. It's a little bit laggy. There we go. So this app is called Smart Recorder. There's a lot of apps with similar names, but you want this one for a few key reasons, and it disappeared again. So Smart Recorder is the key things that allows you to do that you want to be able to do in a phone app is to turn off noise suppression and be able to control the gain. So just on this microphone here, for instance, the gain is a little knob. So if I turn up the gain, I'm just going to suddenly get louder and louder. And if I turn down the gain, I'm going to get quieter and quieter. It's like the boost, it changes the boost level. And so you want to have your microphone kind of gained so that you don't ever play music, doesn't ever record music that's too loud, because it'll clip and you'll lose kind of sound quality at the top, or too quiet, because then you won't have enough definition in the sound. You want to kind of be in that middle range.
So just quickly for Joe. So Joe, that's what's been happening at Canterbury maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago, when it was like really distorting. People were not.
That's the week I was playing, I think. Yep.
Yeah. So sorry, Sam. I just wanted to say, like, for people that do production in the collegial world, if all of a sudden it sounds really bad and muddy and overdriven, what he just talked about could be the actual reason. So, just a real world application of that going wrong, Sam.
I just managed to connect to screen share on my phone. So Sam, if you wanted me to show anything, I can do that.
Yeah, so if you go up to the three dots and go into settings. So, and if you go to microphone adjustment, so see where it says devices auto gain control. So that auto gain means that it's going to continually adjust your gain level so that you're never too loud and you're never too soft. But what that means is that you have no dynamics. Everything's the same volume kind of all the time. And you also get fun things where if you're silent for a couple of seconds, it'll crank the gain all the way up. And then when you start talking again or start playing again, you're really loud for a second, and then it goes, oh, you're way too loud, and goes and cranks you back down. So you get these kind of weird spikes, and it means you have no dynamics, and it kind of just doesn't work very well. So you want to turn that off. And when you do that, if you toggle that, then it allows you to, in this one, you can calibrate. So if you press calibrate and then you play whatever instrument you're going to play, it's probably not going to work while you're screen sharing. Johnny, I found that before. Doesn't like having a mic input. Oh, there you go. So it'll calibrate down so that what you're playing isn't too loud. So when you're doing that, you want to play as loud as like you want to play just a fraction louder than the loudest that you're going to play in whatever you're wanting to record. And then once that's done, you can test it, and you'll see where your levels are, your volume level is sitting relative to that. And you want to be getting close to the top, but not hitting the top. So you have a nice dynamic range and lots of, I guess, information in your recording. So that's sound recorder. It's really easy. You can, and so what we've been finding. Unfortunately, to make this work, you typically need two devices. So you might have your computer next to you with headphones coming out of it, and so you're listening to whatever track you're recording to, and then you have your phone set that you're recording onto, and then you can upload that. You can take it off your phone through Google Drive or however you want to do that. There's a lot of different options. And I will post for both of these apps. If I share my screen here. All right, can you see a website now?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is Northern Beaches Brass, which is my brother's website. Well, what he has on there is a virtual performance guide with a couple examples, and then really, really good step-by-step kind of setup for everything from recording a video as well, settings, kind of typical settings that are good to use. And then he has walkthrough tutorials about how to set up and use both Smart Recorder and Spire. And I'll refer you to his tutorials if you're wanting to use Spire. Spire works essentially the same way, but settings are all just a little bit different. And it's a fantastic app, arguably slightly better app than the Smart Recorder one and what it can do. But what I really want to talk about is it's really easy to get, so that allows you to record, but then how do you get the most out of this microphone? And there's a few little tricks to find out. So I'll just stop this share. Your phone typically has 3 microphones on it. It usually has one at the bottom, which is the microphone that it uses when you're making a phone call. There's typically one up the top, which it uses when you're on a video call with someone and you're on the front-facing camera. And sometimes they have one on the front as well, which we'll use if you're using that camera. And typically this microphone is the best microphone. But you want to find out when you're using that app, which microphone that the app is using. And that's really easy to do. You can just look at the level and click next to the bottom and click next to the top and see which is loudest. And that'll tell you. And then it's a classic thing that I've seen a number of times. Someone's recording and the microphone's on the bottom, and so they put their phone on a music stand like this, which means that the microphone is pointing straight at the music stand. And that isn't going to sound very good. Or you'll see someone, they've got their microphone that they'll put the microphone like that, so that's how typically I record if I was recording trumpet. But then they put their trumpet right beside it, and that'll be really really loud. It'll probably clip a lot, and you get a lot of ear noise. So for trumpet, I'll play kind of like over here at an angle. And every instrument is different, so it's worth taking the time when you're before you start recording to do a couple of little tests and figure out what mic placement works the best. So it's the same if you're recording a guitar, where that microphone is in relation to that guitar is going to make a difference to how that guitar sounds. If you're recording on a live piano, if you put your phone on the piano, you're going to get a really, really what's the word? That you just get a lot of overtones, harmonics, and you get a really, really big sound, but it's really muddy because you're getting all of this resonance of the piano coming through your phone. But if you put your phone just kind of beside the piano, then you get the sound of the piano without all of that extra resonance, and it's a lot cleaner. So there's a lot of different tips and tricks around that to getting a good sound. But those are kind of the main ones. Mic placement makes a huge difference to the quality of the sound that you get out. And the last tip, if you're playing any kind of instrument that requires tuning, tune before you record, because there's nothing worse than getting your recording into whatever you're going to mix it in and it's all kind of out of tune with each other. It's very hard to fix that afterwards. There's one thing that Joe Cheek talks about. The quality of your performance is the thing that you should focus on first. And then, because it doesn't matter if you have the best microphone in the world, if your performance isn't very good, then that microphone isn't going to help it. Once you've got a good performance, then making sure your mic is set up in such a way to capture that is really important. And then you can kind of, all of these other things that you do further down the procedure, they only make a big difference. The stuff at the start is the most important. The stuff at the end is tweaking. It makes a small difference. But if what you have at the start isn't very good, then what you have at the end isn't going to be very good. There's only so much you can do in post.
I've just got a bit of a question about that. If I was to record on my phone,
yep,
from my keyboard, is it better to have the phone further away? Is that
you would have to experiment. It would depend on if you're just recording on your phone from a keyboard, I would assume that the sound's coming out your keyboard speakers, And so you just got to experiment with where is that is the best. I mean, it's
Okay.
definitely with a keyboard. If you can get a direct line from the keyboard to the computer, that's
That'll
going to
be
be
better.
better.
Okay.
But yeah, it would just be a case of trying a few different spots and seeing what sounds best.
All right, sure.
Every kind of situation is a little bit different depending on where the speakers are on your keyboard, and
Okay.
but it's not going to make as much of a difference with a keyboard as it is with like a flute or a saxophone or a trumpet or even a vocalist. Those things all
Okay,
make a
thanks.
difference.
The key is like, don't think that your microphone on your phone is so bad that you have to have it right up close. It's actually the exact opposite. And even if you're a guitar, you would be surprised. Like some of the stuff that I've done in this room, it's like just quick things to send people on my phone. I've put the phone here and I've sat over here because it gives the natural sound of the room. It gives the sound a chance to breathe, and you'd be surprised at how well your microphone will pick it up if you're in a quiet room. So yeah, like don't smother your microphone. If it's a phone, like if it's different if you're in a studio and you're using a pencil mic or a drum kit mic, but like when you're just recording on your phone, don't smother it. Give it some room to breathe.
Okay, cool.
This is a great example of this. My saxophone, if I play right beside the microphone, you can probably hear all those keys. It's not super loud, but you can hear that. Whereas if I play kind of here, you probably don't hear most of that. You only hear the saxophone. And you don't hear most wind instruments. You get a lot of kind of breathiness that comes through. And so if that air movement isn't directly hitting the mic, then you don't hear that air movement. You just get the beautiful sound. So that's a good example of that. So that's the kind of the recording bit of it. Then like there's a lot of different options once you have those files, you've recorded those files. There's a free piece of online software called BandLab, which you can use to put things together. It's like it works. It's not amazing, but it works. I wouldn't record with BandLab because it has no gain control. It assumes that you have an interface. So if you don't have an interface, you can't control your gain going in. But as Joe talked about, Cakewalk is a free software that you can use, and Reaper is free. They both have a little bit of a learning curve because they're set up like software.
BandLab actually bought Cakewalk, so they're actually the new owners of Cakewalk.
Yeah.
Quick question on the it would just then you had the saxophone and talking about picking up the sound of the keys. What about picking up the sound of a pick on guitar?
I'll throw
It's
that.
part of the percussive nature of guitar. It's good. You want it. If you're picking, you want to hear you picking. It's good. It's the like unless you're playing with a completely incorrect weight pick, it will sound the way that it should. So yeah, it's more that what's worse. It's more like the sound of you moving your fingers through, like up and down the neck, like when you move. Like if you have a fresh set of strings, that's going to be your biggest noise is when you move up and down the neck. And that's why you don't point the microphone like at the neck. You point it somewhere in the room where that's just going to have dissipated through the sound. But pick is good. Pick is meant to be percussive. That's acoustic guitar. Picking is meant to be percussive. So don't embrace the pick.
Would you say the same if you're strumming with a pick versus I guess picking with a pick?
Yes, but I wouldn't normally pick with a pick. I would normally pluck with your fingers. Would typically give you a better sound than picking with a pick.
Yeah,
I would
sure.
I would be leaning towards plucking with your fingers and strumming with a pick. Picking with a pick individual notes is good for solos, but not that. It rarely comes out good unless you're playing a 12-string guitar, like we've done on New Day, for example. Like that, dun, 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 that's almost more like harpsichordish. But picking with a pick, unless you're doing hammer-ons, like again, if you're doing it, you're wanting the sound of the percussive nature, so you leave it that way.
Great. Cool. Thanks.
I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah. Any other questions at this point before we move on?
I'm off my video because my kids are getting feral.
All
So
right.
at any given time, I may have to drop out.
All good. All right. Well, we'll move on. So yeah, we were starting to talk about on the computer. I'd really recommend Joe Cheat did a session a while ago on mixing, which it's kind of an intro session on how to mix and some of the basics of that. And I highly recommend, if you're interested in kind of how to do this well, going and checking that out. But we won't get into mixing too much in this session because it's a whole kind of topic of its own. Other than that, there's a number of free softwares that you can use, so you don't have to spend any money on that. And in fact, it's so if you do want to start spending money, which is I think where we'll start to move into now, software isn't the place that you would spend that money to start with, except for maybe if you want to get a few nicer plugins or things, which I know is something that Johnny has done. But the standard array of plugins will do most of what you need for that. So the next thing to kind of talk about is, okay, so we've talked about recording just with your phone. If that's all you've got, there's still a lot you can do. There's a few, actually, the last thing I'll talk about is if you're creating say I'm going to play the piano and then I'm going to send that to Johnny to record a guitar part for, right? But Johnny needs to come in right at the start. It's really good to have a count-in or something at the start so that Johnny knows when to come in. So say we were recording Seek You First, but in a minor key. So and Johnny needs to come in right at the start with me. I will go, all right, I will do a count-in, which can then in post you can just chop it off. So I'd go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that means that Johnny can come in, and we can come in together, and that'll save you a lot of hassle down the track. The other thing that my brother recommends in his stuff, especially if you're recording on a phone, so that because later on you're going to have to try to line those tracks up. When you get into interfaces and things, you don't have to worry about this so much, but you've got individual files that don't always start exactly at the same place. So what he does at the start of his recordings, he'll count down to a clap, and then everybody who records a part, you listen to it and you clap in time with him, and then he'll count into the start of the song, and that means that when he's editing all those together, he can go through and line up all the claps, which looks like a really clear signal in the recording, and that will get the people lined up pretty close. You might have to go and tweak a little bit here or there, but it gets you very close, provided the people that are doing the recording can clap in time, which does take a little bit of practice. But that's a little trick for that. Just completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, so setting up that, we call that that bass track, that master track. The quality of the master track that you send to other people is really important, because if the tempo is wrong, or if it speeds up and slows down throughout, you can't kind of fix that later. That's kind of stuck where it is. Like, so often we'll use what we call a scratch track, which is just like, instead of a full elaborate piano kind of accompaniment, it might be really simple, just like, it's just the bare minimum that people need to play to, with a good introduction and things, and then you can record an elaborate piano part over the top of that, but you've got a bass part that's good and in tune and has a good count in, and all of those kind of things. And that makes a huge difference for this type of kind of simple computer-based recording. So if you are wanting to go to the next level, so okay, you know, I'm doing all of that and that's working well, but I want better sound quality, or I want to be able to do multiple takes and just want that whole recording process to be a little bit easier. Then some kind of interface is probably, well, there's two ways you can go, right? You can get a microphone that plugs into the USB port of your computer, or plugs into your phone, and that will improve your sound quality, and it will allow you to start using Reaper or Cakewalk or Pro Tools or whatever piece of software you're using, GarageBand, allow you to actually record straight into that rather than recording onto your phone and then transferring across. And that step is the biggest step to streamlining the recording process, is getting recording directly into your mixing software rather than recording onto your phone and then transferring. But then the next step from that, and you can kind of decide if you're not wanting to ever go much beyond that, that's a good option. But if you want room to expand, then getting a little interface, and a little stereo microphone or something like that is probably a really good way to go. So I was really lucky when I set this up that I was able to borrow an interface. In fact, this entire setup is borrowed. And that's a really good option. If you know people that have gear, talk to them and say, do you have an interface that's not being used? Can I borrow it and try it out for a while? And because that'll help you figure out what it is you're looking for.
For sure. Seventh Day has a bunch of spare as well, stuff that we've grown and upgraded over the years. So please definitely ask.
Yeah. Especially if you're not sure if this is something you want to pursue or not. Borrowing some gear for a bit is a great option. And then you can figure out where you want to spend your money. What stuff do you want to get your own of? Some stuff can be borrowed long term, but some stuff has to be given back. So there's a lot of gear out there. Don't be afraid to ask. Like, the worst case is that there isn't that you get a no. Like, that might happen, but don't be afraid to ask to borrow gear, because especially in Australia, there's a huge amount of gear around, and a huge number of people who would love nothing more than to help you get started. I'm sure James will agree with that. But yeah, an interface is a great option. You can get interfaces really cheap now compared to what they used to cost. I mean, the interface I'm using is a little bit more elaborate than some, but this is a 6-channel interface, so it can take 6 lines in, and that costs about $450. But you can get them significantly cheaper than that, I believe, because this one is kind of focused on being portable, which is super useful, but not necessary for most people. And you'll see tomorrow evening at our meditation session, I took this interface and a couple of microphones to a Cornerstone rehearsal. We had our first rehearsal since before lockdown started, and I took this interface along, hooked up a couple of microphones, ran a couple of leads in from guitars and keyboards, and just press record, and we recorded 3 songs in 2 hours, just live. And you'll see one of those recorded, performed tomorrow. And it's not like the most amazing quality because we haven't played together for 2 months and we only did 2 takes. But it was super quick and easy to set up. Like, you don't have to have really complicated, elaborate setups to get good results. So an interface, a good microphone. I don't know that much about microphones. Johnny probably knows more than me about that. I don't know if he has any thoughts on where people should start on that, or James.
I'd say most of the stuff I know about microphones is mainly live stuff, but I'd imagine that you could get a quite adequate microphone for recording vocals for somewhere around a bit under $200. I'm just trying to base that off Shure SM58 or something. That's a very robust microphone that a lot of people use for a lot of things. Its cousin, the SM57, is used for a lot of things in the studio as well. I'm not too sure about the most commonly used studio mics, but I know there will be brands, I think maybe Rode. Yeah, something like that.
There's actually a good thread on the Music Collective page at the moment about microphones. But I mean, if you're looking at buying a microphone, talk to James or Joe Cheek, or even ask us, and we can point you towards people you can talk to who have a huge amount of experience. The interface I've got actually came with a little stereo microphone that attaches directly to it. So, you don't necessarily. So, as an example, that interface, $450-ish for a 6-channel interface and a stereo microphone, is pretty good value for getting started. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. A good microphone and an interface are the fundamentals. And then, if you can run MIDI if you have a keyboard, if you can run that directly into your computer, that's great. In the case of these, I actually have MIDI cables now to run them in, but I'm still just running sound directly out and through my interface into the computer at the moment. which works perfectly fine for everything that I need to do at the moment. Yeah, I guess the point I want to get across with all of this is it's not as complicated as it seems from the outside. And there's a lot of people around who are really happy to help, give advice, and can talk to you about what you're trying to do and help you do it. Yeah. Any questions, discussions, comments, tips, tricks, anything that people want to talk about?
Joe's just gone and disappeared. James, Joe.
I need to say thank you, and that was quite helpful. Came in here starting not really knowing what to expect, so that was good.
Certainly, one thing that I've picked up from our experimentation with doing this kind of stuff is that, sure, what you might come up with at the end isn't perfect, but it's a lot better than nothing. And in the current situation, a lot of people are quite happy with something that's not perfect in replace of nothing.
Yeah,
that's true, actually. Even just like if I was playing for the meeting and you make a mistake or something, most of the time people don't really notice anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, the response we've had to the things we've done has been pretty awesome. People are so grateful to see, to hear music that's actually been recorded by our musicians, as opposed to just having YouTube videos. As great as the YouTube videos are, there's something a bit more special about. It's like, actually, the people in my meeting recorded this. That's really cool. Something really special about that.
Yes, there is really.
Yeah, it's like James said, that people actually like the authenticity of mistakes and imperfection when it comes to Christo music. So it's pretty encouraging.
Yeah. It doesn't mean we shouldn't, strive to make stuff that's as good as we can, but it means we don't need to worry about, we don't need to, stress about it so much that we don't put stuff out because we're worried about it not being good enough.
That's the biggest point of this whole thing is people have songs that have never been heard because people were too self-conscious. And you don't realize what might happen once it gets out there and into the hands of maybe someone who does have time. I mean, right now, you guys see, I'm like trying to figure out how to squeeze something in with kids and dinner. But like, I've got songs. If I can just click a demo, share it out to Easter Online, or do you guys, somebody else might pick it up and go, hey, send me the session and I'll run with it.
Yeah. And like, I think the songwriting session at Easter Online actually really inspired me. I haven't written anything in a very long time, and last time I did write was very unsuccessful. But that inspired me again to say, you know what, I will give it a go. And since then, I've been working on a song which is about, I don't know, 2/3, 3/4 of the way through writing. There's still a lot of work to go on it, but from never being able to write more than a few lines of a song.
Hey Sam, just real quick, I've got to run now. I've got to go meet somebody outside. So,
Nice.
love all of you guys, and thank you so much for your contributions. And next generation, us oldies, we're inspired that you guys are going for it and trying to be inspired by this pandemic time. So thanks huge to Sam, and good job. And let us know if you guys, if money is a barrier or if gear is a barrier to your creative input into our community, sing out. People will be there to catch you.
Thanks, James.
All right,
thanks, James. I'm going to have to get going as well. Thanks, Sam, and everyone else.
Thanks for coming, Joe.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, Sam and Johnny.
Thanks for coming, Paul.
I've got another question, a super beginner question. Does anyone actually try to record acoustic piano anymore, or is it pretty much all MIDI?
MIDI it's a lot easier to get a clean sound, and it gives you a lot more options on what you do with it. I'm definitely still seeing people recording acoustic piano though. That there's challenges with that. So like if you have a really good setup and a really good microphone, you can do a fantastic job of recording acoustic piano. Um, and I mean the piano in that track that we shared earlier was acoustic piano recorded on someone's phone. Um, so it's definitely doable, and you can definitely get it to sound good. Um, but most of the more professional stuff happening at the moment is using MIDI.
Right. So that's for the effort investment. That's probably the way to go. Sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, definitely both are possible, but it gives you a lot more flexibility.
Right. Cool. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. So I was talking about the songwriting. Like, I don't expect that to be a fantastic song. It's the first song I've ever written all the way through. Well, hopefully I write it all the way through. It's mostly done. But the point is that I'm writing it, and writing it is good for me. And at some point I'll throw it out to other people, and it might help them in some way, or it might inspire them to do something. Um, we don't have to be perfect at these things to have an impact with them. Yeah. Any other questions before we wrap this up? Cool. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming. It's been a good session. Yeah, and I think there's another elective starting soon if anyone wants to catch that. I'm sure the details are on all the various pages. Yeah, thanks for coming.